Good evening, pipe smokers. This is Paul the Pipe Guy live from Rochester, New York, and it's time again for our Two for Tuesday. Grab your pipe and smoke with me. As you can see, my hair again is disheveled. I've been welding with a welding helmet on all day. I don't know if you can see the black mark across my forehead. I think I got one down here too from the welding helmet. Um, so, grab your pipe and smoke with me. Grab your favorite beverage. I have my Busch beer here. We're going to open our first one. Ah, yes. After a long day. Ah, yes. So we have our two pipes today. We have our Peterson limited edition Dublin XL24. It's my son's pipe, but it's one of my favorite pipes, and he says I can smoke it anytime I want. And inside of it, we have vanilla custard, of course. And then, in my Mr. Bragg poker pipe, I have, straight from the UK, Rever. Yeah, Rever plug tobacco. That's great stuff. I love Rever plug tobacco, and I love, of course, as I've said before, this Spark plug tobacco, which you can get on pipesandcigars.com. It's like $11.49 or $11.99 plus $3.95 shipping. And I think it's 2 or 2.5 ounces. I love this stuff. Just what a both of these tobaccos just have a wonderful flavor. Like I was sharing with you in past videos, plug tobacco is layered tobacco leaves, and they're compressed together under high pressure. So the juices tend to marry with each other. And then it's aged most of the time, and just, it's great tobacco. I mean, if you've never tried plug tobacco and you've been smoking for a little bit, watch a few videos on it and spend, with shipping and everything, I don't know, $15. You can't go wrong with spark plug. It's definitely a nice all-day smoke. Yeah, I do have dirt on my chin. So, let's start by lighting up our Rever. Yeah. Two for Tuesday. How's everybody's week going this week? So, going to work this morning. And the two main types of welding is TIG, T-I-G welding, and MIG welding. And I won't deeply get into the differences, but with TIG welding, you have what's called a torch that you hold in this hand. It doesn't really spray fire out. It has a rod that comes out of it made out of tungsten, and you get it about 1/8 of an inch away from where you're welding, and when you push down on the foot pedal, it makes an arc of electricity that's extremely hot. And then in this hand you have a rod, and you just kind of poke it into where you're melting the metal. And then there's MIG welding, which basically just have the welder, and you have a wand. I don't know if they call it a torch or whatever they call it, a gun, but basically it has a stick that comes out, and then there is a tiny thin wire that comes out, and basically go along and just pull the trigger on it, and you do that. Well, it was TIG welding And TIG welding is very, very hot. Uh, but they have leather gloves to protect you and so forth. Um, some of the guys that have been doing it for a long time can actually do it barehanded. But MIG welding, which is what I did today for the first time, is extremely, extremely hot. So I wore my TIG welding gloves, and I didn't realize there was such a thing that you needed to wear a more insulated glove for MIG welding. So I'm using the wrong gloves, and this is what happened. That right there, I don't know if you can see that on camera or not, is a major, major blister. And I do have a very, very high threshold of pain. There. That's it right there, if you can't tell. It's pretty big. So, I'm sitting there and I'm doing my thing. And, radiant heat and so forth, and heat off the metal is coming up. And it felt real warm, but I'm like, all right, I'm almost done with my pass, and so I just kept going at it. And so by lunch, I took it off, and I had a little blister. Then I went back after lunch and kept at it, and just kept at it and kept at it and kept at it. And so that's what I ended up with. Yeah, a monster blister. That's the biggest water blister I've ever had from a burn ever. I mean, you can tell next to my other hand there. That thing is huge. So, I did some practice plates this morning, and any of the welders that came over, a practice plate basically is just a plate that's 4 by 6 inches or 5 by 6 inches long. And you just weld on that. You weld straight lines. And the guys were coming over and looking, and they couldn't believe it. They were like, wow, you just caught onto it like you're a natural. I was like, well, I watched a lot of videos on it and so forth, and so then it came time for me to practice for my test. In things like welding, they don't give you a written test. Maybe in advanced welding, they may have some written tests, but you basically have to prove that you can weld something without any voids in it. They send it out, they x-ray it to make sure there's no voids, no inclusions, no air bubbles or anything in any of your welds. And if there is, you fail. So I'm just messing around with a couple of test pieces of metal, and they were about that size. I'd say maybe 6 inches by 5 inches, 7 inches by 5 inches. And they were 3/4 of an inch thick. And what they do is, when you go to put the two plates together, imagine this is the top of the plates. They're basically cut down at a 45-degree angle, and then you put your welds in here. You build your welds up. And so the hardest one to do is the first one that's all the way in the very bottom, where you actually attach the two pieces of metal. First two plates I did fine. Then my supervisor, my welding supervisor, comes up and he says, all right, it's time for your welding test, and I'm going to help you pass this. Well, all of a sudden, I was like, didn't know what I was doing. I was getting the weld all the way up on one side, and then I had to grind it out, and then the 45-degree bevels weren't perfect. They became wider, so it's like I had to even put more weld in there. It was a learning experience. Needless to say, they didn't send that plate in to have it tested because it would have failed. But it's one of those things by trial and error. You just have to learn just by doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. So, he was watching me and I kind of choked. Yeah, that's basically what happened. So, he says, all right, tomorrow we'll try it again. And he says, I know you're going to pass. I says, well, I know I'm not giving up. He says, look, he says, you've done very, very well. I can't believe how well you've done just in your practice stuff and all of that. But he says, there's not one person that I've ever met that can go for their test the first time and come out smelling like a rose. He says, it just doesn't happen. You get nervous, you think that, whatever. You know how it is when you get nervous. So for you younger people that are looking for something to do, I mean, if you're 40 or under, well, I'm 56 and I just started welding. So at any age, you can learn to weld. And there's a huge shortage of welders. And once you got it down, and you can weld really well, you can almost name your own price as far as how much you get per hour. I mean, we had one guy there making $36 an hour. If you're in a union, those guys with their benefits and everything make more. But actually, the shop that I work at, they have a very good benefit package. So, So anyways, tomorrow I will pass my test. Because after my test was over, I took 2 other plates together. I welded them perfect. And my welding instructor was like, you know what? I think it's just because I was standing over you watching. He says, because you did fine all the other times. So, life's good. It's about almost 70 degrees here in the Rochester, Brockport area today. Beautiful sunny day. Yeah. I used to make a lot more money than I do now. A lot more money. Like 3, 4 times the amount that I'm making now. But I'm 10 times happier now. And I can still pay my bills. Sometimes it's not all about the money. I actually had to realign my finances, pay some things off, and of course having kids grow up and not having a huge grocery bill and medical bills and so forth. That helped a lot. So I don't need to make the money that I made before. It's funny how I look back at my life and there's different stages. There's a long stage where I really had to make a lot of money because I was married and, you know, neither one of my first wife was a stay-at-home wife, so she had no income. My second wife, you know, she was a server at a pizza place, and she did okay, but you know, I had to make a lot of money and work a lot of hours and stressful conditions to provide for those children and for those wives. Plus, I had child support. At 56 years old, though, I think I'm the most content I've ever been. Because it's not a wild goose chase anymore. It's not chasing the almighty American dollar because you have to. I go to a place now, get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm there at 7:15. I'm not on the clock till 7:30, but I always like to get at my job 15 minutes early. Kind of sit out in my truck and mentally prepare myself for the day, text my girl, tell her good morning, that I love her. You never know what you're going to come across on the way to work either. I mean, one time we had, it was really windy the night before, and the route that I take, there was a tree down, a big tree across the road, just after you went around a bend, and I barely saw it and was barely able to stop. Probably would have taken all four tires off my truck. But I was 15 minutes early, so I just rerouted, and I was to work 5 minutes early. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Oh, this vanilla custard. Mm. So, I mean, I love to go in there. I'm there from 7:30 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. I'm home by 4:30 every day, and that's after stopping at the store to get beer and, you know, something for dinner or whatever. If I just left straight from work, I'd be home by 4:15. Go to bed somewhere between 8 o'clock at night and 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and I'm up at 6 in the morning. No nights, no weekends, no holidays. Never had that before. I'm not rich, but I'm stable, which gives me a really good feeling, just a feeling of comfort. My other jobs, you never knew how much you were going to make. Depended how well you did that month in sales and getting your loans approved and stuff, and how many customers came in. I was always on time with my bills. But now I know each week what's coming in. I have a budget, a very strict budget. And you always have to have that little safety net, that little bundle of cash that you don't touch, where if your vehicle breaks down or if something happens, it's an emergency fund. And I've learned that that's so important, because there's a lot of people in this world that they'll have an emergency and all of a sudden they're living week to week and they don't have an emergency fund. And then they're borrowing, and stealing from every friend and family member to put everything back together. I don't ever want to have to rely on anybody. When you have an emergency with no emergency fund, then it becomes a real, true, not good emergency. If you have the emergency fund, something happens and you got $1,000 car repair. All right, well, I got $2,000 tucked away, or whatever. Then it's like, all right, at least I have it to, and then you replenish it, So, I don't know. Life for me is good. It's not always easy. Nothing is easy. You just do the best you can every day. And if you do the best you can every day, do the things that you think are right, and do the very best that you can at whatever you do, it'll be good enough. Sometimes it won't be good enough, but if you keep on track and just keep trying to do the best you can, the very best that you can, you'll come through whatever you need to get through. No use in worrying about things, as long as you know you're going to do the best you can do. And whatever life throws at you, you're just going to take it in stride. Sometimes you have to step back and look at what's going on and reevaluate, make some changes. Or just look, how do I solve this problem? Or how do I solve this obstacle? How do I get over this hurdle? It'd be like if you're driving down the road and all of a sudden you realize you're on the highway and you have a flat tire. And at first you're thinking, oh no, what am I going to do? This sucks. And then you sit back and you think about it and you're like, okay, I got a spare tire. I have a jack. I have the knowledge to change the tire on the side of the road. But you're still like in a little bit of a panic mode because this suddenly happened to you. You may call work and say, hey, got a flat tire. I got to change it. I'm running a little bit late. Then once you get out there and you start changing that tire and you realize you have the knowledge to do it, then there's a feeling of calmness that comes over you because you can get over this hurdle. At first, when that hurdle with a flat tire, and the vehicle's shaking like this, and you're like, oh, geez, it feels like somebody hit you in the head. But then once you realize you have all the tools and all the remedies to fix the problem, it's not so bad. And you overcome that hurdle. Mm-hmm. And you win. My oldest son, who passed away, um, I remember in first grade he had a real hard time with first grade. It was going back many, many years. And I remember he got held back in first grade. And so we went in to collect his books out of his desk and so forth. He had forgot him. He was so upset about it. Went to collect his things out of his desk, and as we're doing that, he was just a little guy, almost white hair, real blonde, blue eyes, crystal blue eyes, and he's just got his head down. I felt so bad for him, and we're collecting the stuff out of his desk, and I says, David, I says, you didn't fail. They're holding you back. The only time that you will fail is when you're knocked down and you don't get back up and try and do it again. If you accept failure, you're just going to keep failing. Next year, you do it again, you're going to pass, you're going to be fine. Dad'll help you. The only time someone truly fails is when they give up and stop trying. I don't know if that made him feel any better or not, but I mean, you look at a lot of people that are very, very wealthy that are billionaires. Many of them have gone bankrupt and gone broke 2, 3, 4, 5 times. But they didn't give up. They had an idea that they believed in, a concept that they believed in, and even though they failed, instead of going back and trying it the same way again, they analyzed it and decided, okay, is this something that could really make me successful? And if the answer was yes, they pursued it, but tried to accomplish the mission a different way. Or maybe they said, you know what, that goal that I really wanted to is not a winner. Let's pick something else, and then we'll go after that. Most successful people, most solid people, are people that just don't give up. They have tenacity. And you don't step on other people to get where you want to be. Never, never, never step on anybody to get where you want to be. Because when you're going down, they're going to be stepping on you. I had an instance one time where I was a very young man. This was back in the 1980s, and I was probably making about $65,000 a year as a finance manager. And I had a partner. His name was Warren. Warren was a great guy. Warren was a Vietnam veteran, Special Forces. Oh, he didn't mess around. Actually, it would have been after Vietnam, but he was Special Forces. He had machine gun burns on his forearms from firefights where they were attacked, and he just had to keep firing his weapon. He was a lefty, so the hot brass, the empty bullets were coming out and hitting his forearm and burned him. He didn't want to talk about it, but through the years I learned a lot about Warren. He was a good, honest man. Still is. Haven't seen him in years, but to get down to what integrity and not stepping on other people to get ahead, the owner of one particular business that I worked for, Warren and I were finance partners. So he would take some of the customers after they bought a vehicle do what he had to do, and I would take some of the customers, we'd arrange the loans and stuff for them and all of that. One time the owner of the car dealership came to me and said, "Hey, how would you like to run this whole department by yourself?" And I said, "Well, why would I want to do that?" He said, "Instead of making 65,000, you could make double." I says, "Well, what about Warren?" And he says, "Well, if you tell us that you'll just run the department by yourself, we're going to fire Warren, and you can have the whole department by yourself and make twice the money." I said, "Well, that's not right." I said, "Warren has a family. Warren's got a house with a mortgage, a car payment." They couldn't understand that. They said, "Well, yeah, but all you got to do is say yes, we'll fire him, and you can be making double the money." I said, "No." I says, "If you fire Warren, I'll be working at another job tomorrow." I said, "Warren stays my finance partner. I'm dedicated to him and he's dedicated to me, and we do a good job," which we did. We made that dealership a lot of money. Some people are so money hungry, they think that you're just money driven and you'll throw anybody under the bus just to do better. I've never been like that. Never will be. Anyway, that's our 2 for Tuesday. Grab your pipe and smoke with me. Hope you all enjoyed it. Be kind to others. Love one another. Enjoy your pipes and your tobacco blends. Live long. Be prosperous. And prosperous doesn't always mean a lot of money. Prosperous can mean that you have a fair amount to pay what you need to pay as far as your monthly expenses, but also a full life to have friends, children, spouses, family. Those things are priceless. Anyways, happy 2 for Tuesday. Paul the Pipe Guy live from Rochester, New York. Happy pipe smoking, pipe smokers. Over and out.